What is going on, Nuggets Nation, NBA fans? I am Tom Leuthner. Welcome back into Nuggets Today. So before I get into anything that I want to cover when it comes to free agents, I want to talk about the Nuggets fan base for a second. So I was a little interested in seeing what the international ratings and percentage were for certain fan bases in the US and obviously in the NBA. And I actually found an article, this is from 2 years ago now, but Caroline Sellers from K4.com, which is an Oklahoma news source, made an article 2 years ago. I thought it was very interesting. All these stats come from gambling.com based off of multiple different things, such as social media followings, anything in that realm. And it is the teams with the most international fans in the NBA. And Denver was actually number 10. And I was a little surprised, and I'm going to get into why I was surprised. But they rank 10. The teams that are before them are the Brooklyn Nets, the Golden State Warriors, the Lakers, the Timberwolves, the Clippers, the Raptors, the Thunder, the Celtics, the Bucks, and then at 10 is the Nuggets. Like I said, this is from 2 years ago. But what I think is interesting is the fact that Denver's so low. You look at the players that Denver's had, at least in my history, in the recent history, and you look at Jusuf Nurkic, who was international. Danilo Gallinari was international. Facundo Campazzo was international. Vlatko Konkar, Nikola Jokic. You have these international players. Isaiah Hartenstein. You have these international players, so I think it's very interesting that Denver is so low. And I understand the Nets have had their international guys. Obviously, it's not just that everybody there doesn't have an international player. I'm sure the Lakers are probably higher up now. Since the Luka Doncic trade, again, there's probably some teams. The Timberwolves are probably up there even higher now, Rudy Gobert being there. But again, like I said, I think it's a little interesting that Denver is so low because of the international following and amount of players that they've had on their team. But since we're on the topic of international players, the next three topics I'm going to cover here today are the international players on the market now, free agency market, that I think Denver should target this offseason that are probably cheap enough to get. So the first guy I want to cover is a Serbian point guard, which is Nikola Jokic's teammate. He played with him this past summer actually against the U.S., and that is a 31-year-old, 6'5" point guard, Vasilije Micic. I knew a little bit about him. I didn't watch many of his games, obviously. He was on the Hornets. There weren't many Hornets games I'm watching, especially being a fan of a West Coast team. But he played 41 games last year before getting traded to Phoenix. In those 41 games, he averaged 6.6 points, 2.3 rebounds, and 3.1 assists. He's definitely not the best option for Denver, and we'll be, that's just being honest. But there are some things I like about him. The first thing I like about him is that he's Jokic's teammate. This is somebody that Jokic definitely likes playing with because he plays with him internationally. The second thing is, if you really watch, and I know it's a highlight reel, and I understand that there's going to be no lowlights there, but if you watch his highlight reel, one, not only can he pass just like Jokic as a point guard, two, he's a ball handler, but three, he's a good mid-range shooter. His splits were a little off, which I'll cover in a second. But at the same time, he gets the shots that he wants, and some of those shots are mid-range shots or low block shots as a 6'5" point guard, which is fantastic as a backup. So like I said, that's 6.6 points off the bench if they could do that. He can shoot a little bit from the field. So he shot 35% from the field and 36% from three. The 36% from three is the league average, actually. So he's an average shooter, or league average shooter. The 35% from the field is a little low. In 2023-24, he averaged 11 points, 6.2 assists, 2 rebounds on 29% from three, but 44% from the field, which are better numbers. Again, this guy isn't taking just layups. Like if you go look at a big man stats, like Andre Drummond that we covered a couple episodes ago, those are guys who are shooting those high percentages because they're taking layups. This is a guy who's getting to the spot and finding mid-range jumpers. He's shooting those fadeaway mid-range jumpers, which I like as a backup point guard because we see the same kind of thing in Jamal. Not like obviously Jamal doesn't only take mid-range jumpers, but Jamal takes a bunch of threes. But at the same time, Jamal gets to the spot he wants to get to and takes mid-range jumpers, which I like because, like I've been saying, Denver needs the shooting. They need the shooting. But if you're able to get a primary ball handler off the bench, which it depends on what happens to Russell Westbrook, obviously, but Vasilije could be, or Micic could be that guy. And again, if he could come in at 6'5" on a minimum contract, I know he's a little bit older, so they only have him for a year or two. Hit those mid-range shots and give you some good bench minutes. That's what Denver needs realistically. They need a guy like that. And like I said, the chemistry might be there with him and Jokic already. Hopefully, if they do go out and get him, Jokic, again, I'm not saying it's the best option in the world, but due to the topic of the episode, obviously I want to cover some guys who I think could make a little bit of a difference on a minimum contract. The next guy I want to cover is from Australia, and that is the big man from the Houston Rockets, and that is Steve Adams. So throughout the season, he only averaged 4 points and 6 rebounds, 1 assist on 55% shooting. Like I said, the shooting splits are going to be higher, or the shooting from the field is going to be higher just because it's a lot of layups. Obviously, we know Steve Adams does not shoot it from anywhere but the paint, really. But what I did like about Adams is the numbers might not be there. Like I said, I think I said the same thing about Paul Reed a couple episodes ago. The numbers might not be there when you come at and look at them on paper. But at the same time, this is a guy who played a huge role for the Rockets when Sengun got when Sengun got in foul trouble, or wasn't putting up the numbers that they needed a break. He was able to come in. He was able to realistically make a difference because he is such a big body in the paint and he is such a big presence. He was playing defense. He was able to go up, get offensive rebounds, dish it out when they needed it. He's a strong body, so those pick and rolls are deadly with him, which I think is great because, like I said, Jamal wants to get to his spot, which is mid-range sometimes. So a screen from Steve Adams is either turning into a center fully picking up Jamal or a wide open mid-range for Jamal. So I think that he's a fantastic option off the bench. The one thing I don't know is if he will be a minimum player. I think he may lean more towards being a mid-level exception player, which, like I said, I'm very specific on who I'd want for that. I think Taurean Prince is the guy that I want for the mid-level exception. I would love Bruce Brown back as a fan, but at the same time, I don't know if I would give Bruce Brown the mid-level. I think I would rather give Bruce Brown the minimum to come back. And if you can get, like I said, if you can go out and get 3 or 4 guys that can make a difference, if Denver's able to bring in, like I said, Taurean Prince, Bruce Brown, Steve Adams, and Vasilij Micic, so be it. I think that's a better roster with Strother, with Watson. You don't have to make any trades with Deron Holmes. Now you have 12 deep if they're actually all able to play. I get a little nervous with Micic because I think that he could be in the same position that Sarge was, where he's getting up there in age, and maybe he doesn't perform the way he was performing on teams that weren't as good. But yeah, I think Steve Adams could be a perfect fit, at least for, the Denver backup minutes at center. He's a big body, goes out, gets your rebounds. I think he played a great role in Houston's offense in the playoffs. Even though they didn't win, he was able to go out and get the rebounds that they needed. He was putting up offensive rebounds. Sure, he had, 6 points here and there. Denver doesn't need scoring from their backup 5 if they can get scoring from guys like Strother, guys like Watson, guys like Brown if he stays in with the back 5. So I think that's another guy I think Denver should target. The last player I want to cover for today's episode is another Australian player. And I know that people are going to be a little iffy about this one. Again, the numbers don't look great on paper. But this is a potential big who can handle the ball if needed. And that is somebody that Denver played in the first round of the playoffs, Ben Simmons. Now, I know Ben Simmons, his health history is terrible. We obviously saw the drastic drop-off in Ben Simmons' career after the Sixers years and the injury and the Nets. But we also saw him play pretty good defense against Jokic. I know everybody's going to say, well, he can't shoot, he can't score. Okay, he's getting backup minutes, and can he still facilitate? I think he can facilitate a little bit. He only averaged 3, 4, and 3 on the season. 3 points, 4 rebounds, 3 assists. Right? And I know, like I said, on the paper it does not look great. But at the same time, we saw him play against Jokic, and he looked good against Jokic, who's one of the biggest, strongest bodies in the NBA. Now, do we think Ben Simmons can guard other players? 100%. Can he guard another point guard? Maybe not, but at the same time, that's why you have a guy like Jamal Murray. That's why you have a guy like Christian Brown, if they're able to bring in a guy like Bruce Brown. But he can guard probably, I would say, majority of the at least 3 through 5, and maybe some 2s. Again, maybe not Donovan Mitchell, but there's definitely 2s out there that he can guard that you can now bring him in, switch up your lineup, have him facilitating a little bit. Again, we haven't seen much of him at point guard since he had left Brooklyn, obviously, or at least in LA. But I think that why not try to bring him in? And you know what? If he doesn't work as a facilitating backup, then you just leave him as your backup 5. Again, he was able to play those good defensive minutes against Jokic. It was him and Batum, which I think, again, you get Ben Simmons to go guard a 5 like Karl-Anthony Towns when they play the Eastern Conference. You get him to go guard a 5 like Şengün, and you have somebody in help defense. That's a perfect fit, in my opinion. He's cheap. He's not going to want much money. And if he does, then fine, you move on from him. But at the same time, I think he could be a perfect backup for Denver. Anyway, that's all I got for you guys today. I will catch you guys tomorrow. Let me know down below if you have any players that you guys would want to sign, you guys would want to trade for, any GMs, any assistant coaches. Let me know down below so I can give you guys my opinion on them. Anyway, that's all I got for today. I'll catch you guys later.